Hello everyone, I'm Jan and I'm the creator of Tenebris, Murder in the Roaring Twenties. It's a single player co-op TTRPG and I just got into this whole niche of GM-less pen and paper just recently, but as I'm creating board games and pen and paper games myself since basically elementary school, for some reason I really wanted to create this kind of crime pen and paper, which was a little tricky, but I was very inspired by the Gerion Rath books by German author Volker Kutscher, and I'm completely obsessed with the books and with the series Babylon Berlin. And so this is why Tenebris came to life, basically. So this video is split into two parts. The first part is me going through the rulebook, and the second part is me actually playing a session, like a rough session. I'm not going into like the whole details, and I'm not going to do a lot of journaling just for the sake of this video, so that it's not getting like 2 or 3 hours long. I don't know. Maybe it does, who knows. Yeah, but this is basically the idea. The game you can download completely for free, and I put a link in the description. So there are actually 2 ways that you can play Tenebris. The first is the classical style. Print out this rulebook and print out the character sheet, grab a pencil, a little eraser, and a deck of cards. And yeah, it's a standard deck, and we need no jokers in this one, so please sort them out before. And then you just play the game. The second way that you can play it is by downloading the... So the way that I named them is printer friendly, which is for like the physical version, and they're screen friendly. This is if you want to play on your notebook, your PC or whatever. This actually has 1 page less. It's not an important page, it was just a filler, so that when I printed out the tables, they are like nicely aligned next to each other when you print them out. So I included this little filler page here, so that this works. In the screen-friendly version, this is not the case, because if you open a PDF file, there's a way that you can actually have 2 pages next to each other, and then there the tables are next to each other. And this is way easier because you don't need to scroll a lot. And there are already writable PDF files for the gaming sheet, like with also the character sheet on top. And yeah, these are the 2 ways that you can play Tenebris, Murder in the Roaring Twenties. So first things first, let's go over the rulebook. When it comes to character creation, we are going to create a character that we are going to later use in the actual game. And yeah, so I will just read it and add a few things here and there to give you a little inspiration on how to play it. One thing, you are completely free to take this game completely apart and put it back together the way that you like. There's no right way to play this game, as with basically every single player tabletop. You can play this in co-op. If you play this in co-op, you need to talk to your gaming mate about the changes that you want to make for this session. Yeah, but that's the only thing to keep in mind. If you want to exclude any part of this, feel free to do so. If you want to add more to the game, feel free to do so as well. This is just the version that I found out to be pretty balanced and gives you a good starting point for this game. As I said, this is the first single-player tabletop game that I made, and it may be full of, like, let's say, not so ideal things, but I played this a couple of times already and I really enjoyed it. So for me it's perfect. Maybe it's not perfect for you. If you're like, this game does not work at all for me, then just play something else. I mean, the internet is full of free games and also like paid games, of course. But if you're like, I like this game, but there are a few things I would change them, and have a great time. So now I want to read the Tenebris Murder in the Roaring Twenties rulebook and add a few things here and there if I think that it makes sense. So on the second page, because this is the first page, second page, there's the table of contents where you can find just if you want to look for something specific, you already have like the pages numbers here. And what you need to play the game. I already told you, deck of cards. Could also be like a digital pack of cards if you want to, if you are playing like completely on screen. Yeah, and then anything to journal. However, if you don't want to write anything down and just make it like a story in your head, or if you play with someone else and you're just like, nah, I don't really like the journaling part of the thing, let's just come up with a cool story. You can do that as well. Like, journaling is not completely mandatory. I would advise you to do so, because as the game progresses, things get complicated. So let's start. About Tenebris. Tenebris Murder in the Roaring Twenties is a single-player / co-op tabletop role-playing game. The game takes place in the fictional city of Tenebris during the Roaring Twenties, the time between 1920 and 1929. The city's industry grew rapidly, the economy was better than ever, and the citizens delved deep into excessive lifestyles, enjoying partying and their newfound freedom from the strict moral codes that existed before World War I. But all the shimmer and glitter couldn't cover the fact that the murder rate was higher than ever, fueled by people's antics and the tragedies of those who were left behind while others made it to the top. With the help of the governor, a new police division, the Criminal Investigation Department, was born. Capable young men and women joined forces to solve the ever-growing list of murder cases. This is the background of Tenebris, but it's not mentioned where Tenebris is located. It could be anything. Like the last session that I had with my girlfriend, we played in a London-style city, also called like Tenebris, but there it was in Great Britain. You could play it in France, in the USA, like whatever you want to. You're completely free to relocate to Tenebris or just use another name for the city, or use a city that you already know something about. And the time with 1920 and 1929 is not fixed. You can completely take this game, put it like in the future, like 3025 or whatever, and you could also make kind of a Victorian era thing, even though you have to change a few things because there are cars and trains and like telephones and stuff. You may need to change them, but you're completely free to do so. Yeah, but as I said, I like to play in the 1920s, so this is what this is about. But feel free to change everything. You step into the role of a detective, solving cases and climbing up the ladder to the top of the CID. The situations you encounter are roughly dictated by drawing from a standard deck of playing cards, but you must imagine the details and write them in your journal with pencil and paper or on screen. As mentioned earlier, not mandatory. Every now and then you must also do skill checks, which are also resolved with cards. The outcome is determined by the stats of your chosen character, and if you have enough action points to try another way of solving the problem, in case you aren't good enough in the demanded skill. You can also use items and different abilities. As you investigate different points of interest in the city and talk to suspects, listen to gossip or engage in random events, you collect more and more information about the case, until you can finally find the murderer and close the case. This is something that needs to stay. So you can't really change like the crime aspect of things, because this is like the core of Tenebris. So now we're going to create a character. Before you start the game, you need to decide which type of detective you want to play. To make your decision easier, the most important aspects of your character sheet, the upper half of the gaming sheet, are explained here. About is about this little section here. What you fill in here is completely up to you. Only the role is determined by which type of detective you play, and the types are these four types: the persuader, the seeker, the technician, and the guardian, but we come to that later. actions, it's this little part here. Depending on your rank, you have a certain number of actions you can use. You start as detective assistant, so you have 3. These are the 3 ranks. It's detective assistant, detective superintendent, and detective inspector. And every time you get prestige for solving a case, you fill in these little boxes. And if you filled in all of the boxes, you are the detective superintendent. And then you get to the next part. And if you filled all these boxes, you are the inspector. And then you gain more actions. More on the actions now. If you use them, the actions, during the game, you must check 1 box. If you don't have any boxes left, you can't use any more actions. There are different events that can give you actions back, mostly by completing random encounters successfully. More on that later. Now we come to the skills. The most important aspect of your character. Depending on your chosen role, you can be either good or bad at a skill and have a special ability. These skills and the ability are used during the game to determine the outcome of a scenario, be it positive or negative. So these are the skills with like the number, it goes from 4 to 10, and there's a special ability that can be used once in this case. So we have charisma. How good can you talk to people? Needed when a heart is drawn during a skill check. This gets important later, but I added the corresponding symbol right next to it on the character sheet, so it's easier for you to determine which skill is used during the skill check. We have intuition. How good can you analyze your surroundings? Needed when a diamond is drawn during a skill check. We have dexterity. How skilled are you with your hands? Needed when a club is drawn during a skill check. And we have lastly we have strength. How strong are you? Needed when spades is drawn during a skill check. So now let me show you the different roles that we can choose. Now you can choose between 4 types of detectives. Write down the role in your gaming sheet, check the stats, and note the ability. So we have the persuader. Like, the higher the number, the better the skill is. So the persuader is like very good at charisma, pretty good at strength, not so good in intuition, and bad at dexterity, and has the ability intimidation. You can automatically win a charisma check once during the time of a case. After losing a skill check, uses 1 action. As mentioned, the action points are here on your character sheet. We have the Seeker. He is very good at intuition, pretty good at dexterity, kind of bad at strength, and bad at charisma. Has the ability gut feeling. This is the same like the persuader, but instead of a charisma check that you automatically win an intuition check. Now we come to the technician. The technician is very good at dexterity, good at intuition, kind of bad at charisma, and very bad at strength. Has the ability Ace Up the Sleeve, where he automatically wins a dexterity check. And then we have the Guardian. He's very good at strength, good at charisma, kind of bad at dexterity, and bad at intuition. Has the ability Adrenaline Rush, and automatically wins a strength check. So what I want to do now is create the character. I go for, I think, the technician, because I haven't played the technician yet. So roll a technician. Excuse my handwriting, it's awful. Name. Yeah, let's come up with a name. I think I want to, for the purpose of this demonstration, put it in English setting. So let's go with, it's a Frank. I want to play a Frank. Or let's just go with Frank Herbert. Yeah, so continue. Gender, male, age, like the end 30s. Personality. He's a technician, so I don't think he's super good with people. So just say he's an introvert. He's kinda shy, but friendly. So we have just like a few personality traits that come into play later during the game. It's not a game mechanic, but if you form the story, you have to think about, is it something that your character would actually do or not? So yeah, this is the about part. Now we come to the skills. The technician has charisma of 6. So we'll mark this here. Intuition of 7. Dexterity of 8. And strength is just 5. During the game, you can't get your skill below 4 or higher than 10. Just to note that here. Ability is Ace Up the Sleeve. And I automatically win a dexterity check. Yeah, and if I use it in this case, I check this box here and I can't use it again until I start a new case. So yeah, this was creating a character. Now let's flip this over. And now we're gonna take a look at the case. Before you start your journey, you must create the murder case your detective is set on. To do so, you must answer the following questions. Who is the victim? Where was the victim found? When and how did the victim die? To give you a general direction, you draw 3 cards from your deck and look at the following tables to find out more about the case. Note them on your gaming sheet, like here at the About section of the case. Then write a short overview with more details in your journal. We're gonna do that later when the game actually starts. It's also a good idea to speculate about the murderer, probably a family member, friend, colleague, the circumstances, what weapon was used, and the motive, robbery, jealousy. Yeah, so let's just go and draw some cards. So the first thing that we do is try to look like who is the victim. So we draw 1 card, and the face of the card determines like the first half of who the victim is, and then the number determines the second half of who the person is. So let's just let's mix this one up again. Whoop. And then we draw a card, and the card is 4 of diamonds. So it's a diamond, so it's a known. And it's a 4, so it's an industry worker. Unknown industry worker. With a minor, it's not the age. I got that asked once, but it's just like, yeah, he's just like your typical everyday Joe. It's just a minor. So let's go over to the next side. Where was the victim found? So we draw another card, and this time it's only the number that counts. So this is a king. So at their workplace. Oh, that's actually convenient. It's a known industry worker, and he was found dead at their workplace. That makes sense. Okay. This is gonna be fun. Okay, so the next thing is when and how did the victim die? We draw 1 card, and the face tells us when the victim died. This is when the victim died, not when the victim was found. So the coroner said the victim died in the morning, but he could be like found 1 or 2 days or even weeks later. This is when the victim died, and then the number of the card tells us how the victim died. These are set in stone. So if he died by drowning, he actually died by drowning. You can't really change that afterwards, or the game just gets like a little too complicated. So it's 4 of hearts. So he died in the morning. And he died by a blunt trauma. So quick overview, a known industry worker was killed. The industry worker was found at their workplace, died in the morning, and died by a blunt trauma. This is actually very good for an industry worker. Setup is perfect. So next we go over the assignments. Now that you know about the crime scene and the victim, your job is to do the following 3 assignments. Find the suspect, find evidence for the crime such as the weapon with the suspect's fingerprints, a hair of the victim on the suspect's clothes, etc. and find out about the motive. You find these 3 assignments on your gaming sheet as well. It's under here at the case progress, together with boxes next to them. These are the boxes, obviously. These indicate how complex they are in this case and are determined by drawing 1 card for each assignment from your deck. Depending on the symbol, you need to check a few or all of the boxes by successfully doing activities. We come to the activities later. For example, a diamond drawn for suspect means that you need to check 4 boxes next to suspect on your gaming sheet to find out who the suspect is. There's also a ceiling on how complex these assignments can be, determined by your rank. If you draw higher, the outcome is downgraded to your rank. We start as detective assistant, so we have a complexity of 2 or 4, and if I draw clubs or spades, these get downgraded. So let's do that. Suspect. It's spades, so it's downgraded to 4. So to find the suspect, we have to fill in these 4 boxes. For evidence, it's also 4 boxes again. You can mark them however you want to, but just maybe leave them blank so that you can actually check them. And then we have another one. So that's typical, like the standard is 4, that it's easier, happens not too often. So 4 boxes for suspect, evidence and motive. And then we come to the part of investigation. Now you need to start your investigation by doing different activities throughout the city, and you can do 4 each day. The more days you need to solve the case, the less prestige you will get. Prestige is, as I already mentioned, needed to get to the next rank. The more days you need to solve the case, the less prestige you will get. Each day you draw 4 cards to see what kind of activities you can do, determined by the symbol. If we draw hard, we can question a person to find the suspect. This is usually, if we are successful, the person we talk to is the suspect. But if it makes sense in the story, it could also be that the person something like either an object or told us something that leads us to the suspect. But usually it's played that we talk to a potential suspect. If we draw diamond, we listen to a person to find out about the motive. So these can be like colleagues, friends, family members, whatever. These can be rumors or something that like a tragedy that happened in the life of the victim and someone who's like connected with that or anything. If we draw clubs, we search for an object to find evidence as stated here. These can be the weapon the person was murdered with, could be footprints or fingerprints, whatever. And if we draw spades, a random event happens and there's a ceiling, so there's a maximum of 2 that can happen per day. You can now decide in which order you want to do them. If you want to, you can now redraw cards, but you must use 1 action point from your gaming sheet per redrawn card. And so we have 3, so yeah. If you already finished one of the assignments but draw the needed activity again, you can redraw it until you have an activity you need to complete an unfinished assignment. Because here comes the maximum of 2 random events a day comes into play. Because if we wouldn't have this mechanism, we could basically draw 4 random events and couldn't continue with the progress. So yeah, so that's why there's a maximum of 2 per day for random events. Now to give you like a short overview on how this would look in action. We draw 4 cards, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have listen to a person to find out about the motive, we have 2 search for an object to find evidence, and we have 1 question a person to find the suspect. In this case, we didn't draw a random event. Random events can be helpful, but can also be pretty bad if you don't manage to fulfill them. And random events don't help you with progress. Random events are basically a way to get back action points, but we come into that later. Yeah, so now we could think about like what we want to do with them, if we want to do all of them, or if we want to redraw a card, or like the way that we change the order of the things. We can always change it during the day, and yeah, that's the thing. So now we come to the next part of the game, which is basically how the game works. Each of the first 3 activities you do is dealt with in the same way. So with the first 3 activities, I mean finding about suspect, motive, and evidence. So step 1. Take the card you draw for this activity and place it face up before you, then draw 2 cards and place them face down next to it. So for this demonstration, I will put these 3 cards away for now. Actually forgot to draw 2 cards face down. Take a look at the first card. It determines the location. Research the location table to see where the scene takes place. So in this case, it's a 5. We go to the locations, and it's diamonds, and 5 is the home of the victim's friend. Small tip for you, if you draw the 4 cards for the activities that you can do, you can already see the places where they take place. And you can already maybe make like a small way that they kind of fit into each other. Like if you, like for example, meet a suspect in the house of the victim's suspicious friend, and then you also can find out about evidence at the victim's suspicious friend's house, you can play them in order that you first talk to the person and then search the room, so you place them next to each other. And yeah, so that's just a small tip from me to make it a little more logical, because it does not make sense to go to the house, talk to the suspect, leave the place, come back later and search the place. Unless you want to do it because you found out something, I don't know. Yeah, but that's the way that I play it. Yeah, so we found out about the location. It's the home of the victim's friend, where we probably find out about a motive. So we go back to this this table. You get in your head like very quickly, and it's always the same procedure for every activity. So it's very easy to remember. Step number 3, write in your journal, why did you choose that location for investigation? We don't do that now, because we don't play the game actually in this part of the video, but this is like the time to do it. Step 4, flip over the first face down card. Now you see the person or the place you want to interact with. Take a look at the people or places table to get more information. Some interactions have a modification, mod -x. This means that there is a certain number that gets subtracted from your skill. In step 6, write in your journal how does the person or place look, and what were your plans. So we go to, in this case, because we are looking for a motive, we're gonna look at people, places, and events. So it's people, we look for a motive. We flip this card over, and it's a 3. So the friend of the victim that we met at his or her house looks very friendly and already knew of an enemy. So these are the modifications. So at 3 there's no modification, but here, like, the higher the number gets, the harder the skill check will be later. So we already know about the place and we know about the person. So we write that in our journal again. So step 6. Flip over the second face down card. This determines the struggle you face. The symbol on the card represents your needed skill on your gaming sheet and the number how hard the task is for you. If the value is equal to or lower than your skill number, you succeed. If it is higher, you lose. In this case, the ace counts as 1, jack, queen and king count as 11, 12 and 13. Now this card, the third card, has a few special things going on. Because if we draw for motive, the next card needs to be a heart or a diamond. If it's not one of those symbols, draw again. And for evidence, it needs to be clubs or spades. As I said, for evidence, if it's not one of those symbols, draw the card again. Either way, we do that afterwards. Let's first flip the card. And again, we are at the motive table. And we drew a heart. So what we need to do is take a look here, and as it's a heart, it's a charisma check that is needed for this scenario. And the number is a 9. We have a charisma of 6, so we failed. If we want to redo it again, we use an action point and just draw the card again. See what happens. So in this case, we lost. Either way, look at the people versus places table, how this affects the game. Plus minus in brackets changes your progress in suspect evidence motive. Plus and minus here, your used skill. And in these weird brackets, I have no idea how they're called in English, your actions. Note you can have more actions or skills than you started with. You can, if you don't like the card you've drawn, redraw it once in exchange for an action point, but you must accept the new card. So in this case, we lost, so we failed, and even though the person was very friendly and knew of an enemy, we couldn't get the person to tell us more about it. So we failed. If we would have drawn a card that we won, we could check 3 boxes in our motive progress. So yeah, and yeah, here you see if you win this one, you get an action point, and if you win this one, you get +1 for skill. However, in these higher ranks, if you fail, you may lose progress or even like an action point or a skill point. So be careful with the higher ones and try to win these here. Try everything you can to win these. Now to point number 7. Write in your journal what has happened. Remember that the kind of struggle needs to be included and the outcome must make sense. Of course, there is only game relevant info in the table under the win or fail section, but you must fill the journal with more details. The weapon you found, information you've been given, etc. Be creative and make guesses how it drives the story. This is very important, and take your time, think about fun ways that can drive the story forward. If you play with someone else, just talk and come up with good ideas. If you do a random event, just draw 1 extra card face down and flip this one over in the 4th step. Then look at the random events table. During a random event, you can't redraw. Write in your journal, how and why did you get to this place and what has happened. So if we take a look at the table for random events, so let's say you did the random event and you draw a card. So this is a king. So someone started a fight with you. So if you can win a strength check of 8, you win 1 action. If you don't, you lose an action. In the case of Frank Herbert, who has a strength of 5, he would lose an action point. So this is how they work. The only exception is you try to catch a taxi situation where you just draw a random card again and try to win the skill check. Tip: if you want to randomize your story in your journal, draw a card at important stages. Like, I go to a house and I see a door, but I don't know if the door is locked or not. Then I just draw a card. This is not like completely game relevant, like as a mechanic or anything. It just randomizes the story in a nice way. So a red symbol means yes or a good outcome. A black symbol means no or a bad outcome. Use it often to keep things interesting. So if I like draw a card, in this case, the door is not locked. Info: put all cards back into the deck and shuffle it after every played day. This is important, so that you can't count cards to see like how good is my chance to win this skill check or that skill check. Yeah, so that's about the activities that you can do in Tenebris. Now we come to buying and using items. At the start of each case, you get a salary of $5 and can use this money to buy items in the shops of Tenebris before starting your investigation. Money can be stacked in your wallet and is carried from case to case. You can't carry more than 6 items. So this here is the wallet, and as we start our case, we have $5. To buy an item, subtract the money from your wallet and note the details in the inventory. Each item can be used to level up your skills once during a check and uses 1 action point. Can only be used if you can include the item in a reasonable way and can't be used during a random event. After you use the item, erase it from your inventory. So, like, you can't use enchanting perfume to open a locked door or anything. So it has to make sense. Yeah, so these are the items. There are items for charisma, intuition, dexterity, and strength. And I would say we just buy stuff for our character. So what do we have? We have $5. I know that I'm bad at strength, so I will need something to push up the strength skill. I think I would use a hammer for that. Like, it's not a very big hammer, it's like a small little one that I can carry with me. Costs 3 and gives strength +3. And then I have $2 left. I'm also like not very good at charisma, so I'm gonna give me a fresh haircut. To make me look a little better. +2. And then we have $0 left. Now we come to closing a case. When you manage to tick all the needed progress boxes, so if these boxes are all ticked or filled or whatever, you have found out who the murderer is and presented evidence and a motive to the director of the Criminal Investigation Department. Write a short summary about the case in your journal, including all the relevant information you found during the days you've worked on it. Depending on how many days you needed, you can fill in the corresponding prestige points on your gaming sheet. As already mentioned, this is this part here. If you manage to get to the next rank, you can add 1 point to a skill of your choice. You also earn actions and can therefore redraw more activities, use more different skills to solve a problem, or help other detectives. More on that in the next chapter. Journal about how you got the new rank and how the new responsibilities make you feel. In this case, you can think about the past cases you already solved. And so here are the prestige points. If we manage to solve the case in 1 to 2 days, you get 4 prestige points and so on. If you need more than 8 days, the case is closed because you couldn't find the murderer. Now you can either start with a completely new character or reset your gaming sheet. Fill up the actions, erase everything in the case section and start a new game. So now we come to the last chapter, which is co-op play. I already did co-op play, it was very fun, and I want to tell you something about a few ways that you can play co-op based on my experience. So co-op play. You can also play together with friends, up to 3 friends, I would say, because otherwise it gets a little too chaotic, I think, or also too easy. But I think 3 is good so that everyone can play as one different detective. You can also play together with friends. To do so, you easily distribute the activity cards, like the 4 cards that we draw at the start of each day, evenly before encountering them. Even though you travel as a group, important, the person who owns the activity card is the one journaling the scene. But others can chime in with ideas, of course. The only difference this time is that if a person fails at a task, another player can step in if their stat and that skill is high enough. This costs the helping player 1 action point. Items and abilities can be used as well. The helping player takes over and journals what happened. The save can be described as well, but it doesn't have to. You could also say that it was planned all along that the helping detective does the job. One thing that I found very interesting in co-op play is the idea that if you fail at a skill check, another person tells you how this affects the story. Like with basically a GM telling you the outcome of your skill check. This way you you don't have complete control over the story, and that just makes it fun, I think. Stepping in during a random event costs the helping player 2 action points. So yeah, this is just an idea I had and I found it good. Prestige points aren't divided after finishing a case, so everyone gets the same prestige points. Playing in co-op, of course, is easier, but it's a very fun way because you can come up with very, very weird stuff. And weird in pen and paper is good. So later I'm gonna play a game of Tenebris and show you the rules and stuff in action, and maybe give you a small idea how if this game is something for you, or if you are like not into it at all. As I said, it's free, so just download it, try it for yourself, and yeah, have fun.